Hi, I'm Old Sneelock. Welcome to another episode of Old Sneelock's Workshop. This sledgehammer is a nice sledgehammer, but the handle is looser than the goose. I'm going to see if I can knock these wedges out. Big challenge is going to be to get that steel one out. So we're going to see just what I can do. This cape chisel should catch a hold of it and let me peel it loose. There. I get to use that again. Now the next trick is to take out the wooden one, but I think I might just drive this down through. We'll see how that works. Need a bigger punch. It's a lot longer, but a lot bigger in diameter too. There. Handle's in pretty good shape. I'll just have to thin it down here so that it comes down a little further. And put a new set of wedges in it. Got something written on the side. I'm going to take the wire wheel to it and see if I can see what it is. Even under the magnifying glass, I can't make out anything other than it's an 8-pound and it's got some other letters in there. So I'm going to have to do some research to find out just who made this. Before I start doing anything on this handle, I'm going to go ahead and put the blow on it. Then, because I'm doing this late in the afternoon, I can let it sit overnight and finish it up tomorrow while I'm working on other projects. This sledgehammer head had a maker's mark in it. A stylized T over a diamond with what looked like a Y underneath it. Well, it was only half there, like the stamp was held at an angle when it was driven in. And since this was made in a factory, I would imagine somebody went along with a punch and a hammer and just smacked the top of a bunch of hammer heads. And that day, might have been a Monday, didn't do a real good job. He did get the 8 centered in there, so I could tell it's an 8-pound hammerhead, but I could barely make out the maker's mark. Well, I did some research last night. I hope I'm not murdering the guy's name, but I'm pretty sure I'm going to. It's Saul Japuntich. I'll put his name down in the description because my name being Nice Wonder, I really don't like screwing up people's name, but you know, it's one of those things. Saul was kind enough to recognize the Woodings Verona Tool Company's maker's mark on Hand Tool Junkies on Facebook. It's one of my resources. If I don't understand something or don't know something, I go look it up. According to the website, the Verona Tool Company was established in 1892. So this could be a very old hammer. From the looks of it, it's not what I would consider a modern style. For one thing, it doesn't have the forge mark lines along the side. Most sledgehammers, you can see the forge mark lines along the side where it goes through the stamping dies. This one is also wider across the eye section. It has the appearance of being what I would call a hand manipulated. In other words, it's stamped and then they punch the hole through with an eye punch. So imagine this is an old one. Besides that, the amount of wear it's got on it, the faces are almost flat from being struck, and it's got a pretty good chip on one side. So I think it's a fairly old one. I don't know that it was made in 1892, but definitely early 1900s. So it's kind of a cool old hammer. It's an 8-pound. I had this in the blacksmith shop for a striker's hammer, but since there's just me, I never got much chance to use it. I mostly drove posts with it. So now with the handle all cleaned up and good coat of blow on it, I'm going to mount the head. This is going to be a simple one. I just have to knock out the wedge, this little piece of wedge on this side. Then I can drive a new wooden wedge in it and put the steel wedge, and we'll be all set. I went to a sale where a hardware store was going out of business, and they had bags of these. These are wedges, and there's a steel wedge, 2 steel wedges, and a wooden wedge in here. So should do a good job. Clamp this in the woodworking vise. Take this pin punch. Knock that bit of wedge out of there. This hammer has the maker's mark on the bottom side. Once again, you check the hole, and the tight spot should be on the bottom, because you want to have this handle wedge split this open so that it fills up the larger eye and holds the head on. Besides that, the weight and the maker's mark is usually put down here because it doesn't get struck as much. Much better chance of it staying on there. Handle's on there good and tight. Now I'll drive the wedges in. A little bigger face. There. Put on some Boston polish wax made by the BWC company. Great stuff. It's a replacement for my can of Butcher's Boston Amber Paste Wax that eventually I used up. Great stuff, prevents rust, makes the handle nice and smooth. Easy to use. I'll put a good coat on the head and that'll seal that against rust. rag back in the can. All set. Now, this is the second sledgehammer that I've done, and I've got 3 axes and 2 sledgehammers, 5 in the series. This is a little shorter handle than the other sledgehammer, but it's a nice size for striking. That's why I had it in the blacksmith shop. It was a striker's hammer. The idea was the master blacksmith uses a hammer and taps where he wants the striker to hit, and the striker then takes a full swing with the sledgehammer and can put a lot of pressure on the metal. Makes it so that there's a rhythm going. Master taps the metal where he wants the striker to aim, and the striker just aims wherever the hammer tap was. So you can keep a pretty good rhythm going, boom, boom, and not have to think about watching the steel. That's what the master's job is. He's watching the steel and seeing how it's moving and determining where he wants the next blow to go. So this 8-pound sledge, you can swing it a long time. The 10-pound sledge is a little harder to deal with. The 10-pound sledge, this is okay as a striker's tool, but it's awfully heavy, and it would take quite a guy to be able to smack this thing into a piece of steel for more than a few minutes, because I'm feeling the weight of it just standing here. Of course, I'm a lot older than I used to be, and don't have quite the arm that I did. Also, this 10-pound sledgehammer has a longer handle on it. The idea being that head speed, in other words inertia, adds more impact to the load than the weight of the head. This is the handle I have in the 10, and this is the handle I have in the 8. The 8's a nice one for working in the shop. This 10 is going to be nice for those times that you really need to hit something hard. As far as splitting wood, this is a much better hammer to hit a splitting wedge, because you got to swing it a lot. The shorter handle means you got a little better control over aim, and it lets you hit that wedge a little easier. If I got to stand out there swinging a maul, I'd rather have the 8-pounder. I have a couple of more hammer heads to change out the handles on, so this will be going on every once in a while. But I got a 10-pound True Temper and an 8-pound Woodings. I'm pretty well set for sledgehammers right now. If you have any suggestions for a new video, questions about today's video, or any of the other videos on the channel, just drop a note in the comments. You know I read them all. Thanks for watching.
This video is not to be viewed by anyone under the age of 13 in the U.S. or 16 in the European Union, without the express written permission of the parents or legal guardians of the underage person. Such written permission must be on file at the local government entity in charge of enforcing the rules and regulations established by the FTC. Anyone violating these terms is admitting by default that they hold harmless the owners and operators of this channel. Any and all questions should be addressed to your local branch of the FTC.